There we go. All right. Welcome, everyone, to the October edition of Birmingham.net Meetup. Glad to see some new faces. I'm speaking tonight, and we're going to be talking about using Copilot chat for a cool use case that was actually very helpful for our company in the last few weeks. Talking about that, and then MCPs as well. A few notes real quick. We do have a .NET Conf that's coming up on November the 11th. So this is an annual conference, virtual conference that Microsoft does that talks about all new things .NET. We have .NET 10 that's coming out, which will be the new LTS version of .NET. So there's probably going to be lots of good stuff there. And then there's also the Ignite conference that is the next week. And it's a physical conference in San Francisco, but then they also live stream a bunch of it as well. So definitely check those two things out. Any other events or anything going on that we should mention? Cool. All right. Food and drinks are out there if anyone needs anything, so help yourself. And we will get right into it. So we've been using Azure App Services for a bunch of our hosting at Moultrie. And you know, we probably have dozens of microservices that we use. And we had an issue where a particular app service, actually the one that's called most for our system, started to have some issues where it couldn't serve requests, CPU kind of maxed out, and it caused some outages. And so it started in the beginning of September, happened one time, it's like, it's a fluke. And then it happened the next week, then it happened the next week. So we tried to get some support from Microsoft on that to get some help there. And if you've ever dealt with Azure support or any kind of cloud support, it can be frustrating to say the least. And so the way that works is you open up a ticket, you set a severity, and so we set this to a severity A because it was causing outages in our system. And so what that means is you got to stay up and talk to them on the phone. You've got to stay on the call with them. So I had probably 48 hours that I stayed on a call trying to figure out what was going on. And you don't get the same rep for 48 hours. You get the US Eastern time rep, and then you get the Pacific time rep, and then you get the Asian rep, and then the European, and then it starts all over again. And so, you know, every 8 hours, basically it moved to another agent. They would have to transfer the ticket. And so it was very difficult. And so ultimately we ended up having, they found some things and some things got better, but it wasn't completely solved. And so, you know, because we were trying to figure out what our app was doing, one of their suggestions was let's take some memory dumps so that we can analyze what is the application doing, so that we can maybe identify why is the CPU maxing out. And so we did that several times, and it seemed like every agent that I gave memory dumps to had a different suggestion for here's what, you know, the problem is and what we need to do. And we tried a dozen different fixes and things. And ultimately, I took those probably 5 to 10 years ago. I got deep into memory dumps, and there was specialized tooling at the time. All that tooling has gotten much, much better since then. But it's been a while since I've done it, so I was relying on the Azure support rep to help me with these things, and we just weren't getting anywhere. And so ultimately, yes.
Could you just explain real quick to some what a memory dump is?
Sure. So there's tools that various platforms, whether you're in Java or .NET or whatever, provide that allow you to kind of peer into the memory that's being used. So Java and .NET are all managed memory programming languages and platforms, and so they have a garbage collector, and so they have tools that you can use to pull insights out of that to see how's that memory being used, what code is associated with what memory. And so by analyzing those files, you can try to determine what might be causing issues in your application. And so, but it's a binary file that's output, and you have to have special tools to read that file, or be a debugging expert in order to get that working. And so,
It can be pretty large too.
yes, gigabytes in some cases. And so, we were getting those. We weren't getting anywhere having the agents look at it. And so we actually had a training last week for using AI for our development team. And so in preparation for that, I had installed a bunch of the AI tools. I've tried Claude Code. We had Chris Sims speak on Claude Code a couple of months ago. And they are very capable tools. And so I said, hey, well, maybe I can use AI to do this. And long story short, I was able to read those memory dumps with multiple agents and basically get a consensus from multiple AI agents for what is probably my root cause here. And sure enough, when we fixed what that was, it fixed our big issue. And so, I thought that was a really interesting and valuable experience that would be helpful to show and share here. So that's what we're going to do tonight. I'll show you some of the tools that we leveraged. So one of the things I'm going to use here is the samples code that .NET provides. So .NET is open source as of a few years ago, which is a big change for Microsoft compared to their humble beginnings. But ever since .NET Core came out, .NET has been open source. And so you can go in and find all of the code associated with .NET now. And one of the other things that they provide is sample code and documentation and all kinds of things. And so in this case, this is a diagnostic scenarios sample. And so this is a .NET web application, an ASP.NET site, and it's got a couple of methods here that you can use to mimic bad behavior effectively. So they've got a method that will create a high CPU scenario. They have a method that will create a memory leak or a memory spike. And so we're going to use this tonight to identify, to take a dump, first of all, a memory dump, and then use that and analyze it with AI. This is all freely available. It's just at .NET Samples is the repo, and then there's lots of folders here, but this is the one. And so I've cloned that down, and I've got that running. And so if you've not used .NET Core before, I'll show the code first. Can everybody see that? Yeah. So it's a very simple application. There's really only one controller and a couple of classes here. And so if you're familiar with ASP.NET, they use an MVC pattern, model view controller. So controllers where kind of the code lives and where these methods exist. And so we can see here's our controller, and here's our first get method for creating a deadlock. And then there's another down here for creating a memory spike, and you can tell it how many seconds you want the memory to spike, or memory leak, or high CPU. So several things here. So obviously you wouldn't want to run this code in your production app, but it's very helpful and useful in trying to figure out and test how to use these tools, and very helpful for this presentation. So any questions on that so far? Everything make sense? So I'm just running this in Visual Studio Code right now, and you can see all of the classes there. I'm going to use the command line here. I can do a .NET build, and so this looks at all the C# code and compiles it into an executable, and then I can say .NET run, and it'll spin up a web server and actually create a web server for me that has this code running on it. So it'll take it a second, and then it'll list out the URLs that we have for this controller. All right, there we go. So it's running at localhost 5011 or 5012 over HTTPS. So now if I go to here, I can say, I'm going to 50.12. I want to go to the memory spike, and I want it to last 5 seconds. And so it's spinning here, and I've run this previously. I'll do F12. No, that's not what I want. So we can see calls. Do it one more time. So here's my call. It's waiting for 5 seconds and causing a memory spike, and then it eventually says the memory spike was successful. So it's just an example of showing how this ASP.NET site is running and how I access it via my web server. Make sense so far? All right. So now I could come in here and use this .NET dump tool. So actually I'll show here. In this code, it tells you what this solution does or this project. And then it says, hey, we have these tutorials that you can use to understand how to use this tooling. That's not the one. Did I close it? Oh, it's over here. Oh, there we go. All right, so here's some of the diagnostic tools that you can use, and you've got .NET counters, you've got .NET stack, and there should be, it's up here, I think. Let's see if it's here. .NET run, there's the counters, yeah. So here, there's a command called .NET dump. I think at the top it says how to install it. No. So .NET makes it really easy. I probably still have it in here somewhere. Yeah. Let me make this bigger. Everybody see that? All right, so here you can use .NET is kind of the main command for the .NET framework for core. And so I'm telling it I want to install a tool, and it's called .NET dump. And you can do this with all kinds of different tools that you have. And so once you do that, then it's installed, and then I can say .NET dump and get some help text. I think I typed it wrong, but it's still got it. Yeah, so there's a collect. And so I could say .NET dump collect. And it says I need a process ID. And so if I go back through, I'd done this previously. And so, in my case, you can actually, I think it's PS. Yeah. So .NET dump space PS shows you all the processes that you have running .NET. And so I could choose any of these. This is the one that I'm using, so 7752. I could 7752. I think I missed it. It's 3 sevens. All right, so now it's writing to this DMP file. And if I were to go in here and run some of my code, so if I say that we want this to run for 20 seconds, so now that's running. Now I can get another dump file. And so now it's asking my application, hey, how are you using memory right now, and what information do I need to have? This is still running, so the memory should be spiking, and it's doing that. And in general, you always want to get 2 dump files so that you can compare one against the other and see how it is, how they compare, and get an idea of what's going on. So now if I look at my folder here, that one, core, the diagnostics. And so now I have some new dump files that were created at 617 to 618. And so these are pretty small, less than a megabyte. But depending on what you're doing, these could be very, very big. And so to show that from a different view, let's go to the Azure portal, and I'll show you how you can do that from there as well. So this is just me running locally. If you were running on-prem infrastructure, you could do the same thing on your own server, or if you're running in the cloud, these cloud vendors provide a mechanism to do this as well, because you can't always SSH into the cloud computer depending on what service you're using. And so from this standpoint, this is just a web API that's running in app services in Azure. And if I go to diagnose and solve, I can go to, nope, not that one, it's diagnostic tools. And here there's multiple things that you can do, but one of them is collect a memory dump. And it says, hey, what storage account do you want to put it in? And do you want to just collect it or collect and analyze? And you can see I've done some of those previously. So you can do the very same thing, and behind the scenes, it's using the .NET dump tool in this case as well, and Azure has just made it really easy to do that through the portal. I suspect AWS has something similar. It's been a while since I've been over there, so I'm not sure. But that's how you pull these dump files. Does that make sense? Any questions? Yeah.
Is the dump file that's created by the .NET dump, is that the same one, the same like format and everything that you did if you did from the task manager?
I believe so. You through the IDE?
Yeah.
Or oh.
Because if you go like the task manager and you're like, I think you right click on a file, so if you.
Yeah. So it depends if these are .NET applications. I suspect it isn't the same, but it's been a long time since I've done. It's the same concept for sure. It's likely a different tool in a different format. Something that's built into Windows development tools probably, where what I'm showing is specifically for .NET. Yeah. Good question. Any other questions? Cool. All right, so now if I look at these, if I try to open one of these in Notepad, actually, we'll open up in VS Code. If it'll even show it. It's gonna be all binary, and you won't be able to read any of it. So, you can't just look at these files and try to figure out what's going on there. You've got to use the tools. And so in here, there's an analyze. So let's see what that is. All right, ready? So now I can use one of these commands to understand what's happening in my dump file. I can say, is there any easy one? Any at all? I don't see an easy one. So at one time, I could kind of use this tool, and now I can't at all. I mean, you see all the different methods that you can run here. You can look at assemblies and concurrency.
You mean they can't keep track of what's in the registers anymore?
No, I cannot.
There's a dump heap up there.
Yep.
Dump heap.
Let's see.
Up a little bit higher.
Dump MD, yeah, dump heap. But then you got to have a memory range. I mean, we can try it. Yeah. Okay. Put some column headers for us. So the point is, like, people build careers on being able to run this tool and know how to use these commands against a memory dump file. Supposedly, I was talking to some of those people in Azure support, and yet we weren't getting anywhere, right? And so I had kind of come to my wits' end and decided, hey, I'm going to have to figure this out on my own. And so what I did is I oh, there it is. There's some of that binary. It really didn't like that. So let's open this back up. So I collected some of these files, and no, I do not want to show that file. And so I collected multiple of these from that diagnostic solution, and you can see some of the stuff I hit. But I'm gonna clear this out and give you a quick overview of GitHub Copilot Chat. First, I've got to kind of clear the air. So I think most people have probably seen, if you go to Bing, there's this little colorful ribbon thingy that's called Copilot. And so this is using OpenAI behind the scenes, ChatGPT effectively. Microsoft works with them, and you can, ask it how to bake a cake, or how to get a job in tech, or whatever you need to do. And it's using ChatGPT behind the scenes. It's the typical AI thing that you've seen before. And so Microsoft, in their incredible naming fashion, called this new thing GitHub Copilot Chat. So they have lots of different copilots. There's a Office Copilot, I think, a Microsoft 365 Copilot. There's this Copilot, but there's also GitHub Copilot Chat. And so that is specifically what I'll be showing today. So this is part of the GitHub. This is just the docs. Let me see if I go to the. Yeah. So this is what coders would want to use, right? If you're developing software, this is the tool that's for you. The other stuff is good, and actually I use Microsoft 365 Copilot to go scan all of my Teams messages and my emails if I need to find something related to the business that I'm in and my work at that business. But when it's time to code, this is the tool that I'm using right now. Others are Claude Code is a very, very popular one. We had a session on that a couple months back. Gemini from Google has one, and there's Codex. There's all the X, and formerly known as Twitter has one as well. So I didn't see this before. He's looking at my cursor. That's pretty cool. But in this case, this is from GitHub, which is owned by Microsoft. And so what's cool, side note, in looking at what we wanted to use for our company as far as a different AI tool, and there's half a dozen to a dozen different options that you can use, everything from Claude Code to Copilot to Codex and everything in between. We centered on Copilot for a couple of reasons. One, we already had a Copilot license, and so most people are familiar with GitHub Copilot in the context of Visual Studio or VS Code. We're able to do code completion. So if you're writing a line of code, it'll suggest and say, hey, you probably want to do this code. And that's helpful, and we had that previously. But now there's kind of a new form of AI that developers are using. It's called agentic development flow or vibe coding or something like that. Claude Code was kind of the big one to kind of get that going. And so now this is more like a AI pair programmer that's sitting there with you every time you want to do anything with any code, whether that's planning out code or architecting or actually developing the code itself. These tools have gotten very, very good at being there to assist you in those efforts. And so this works on Writer, Visual Studio, and VS Code. And I'll show here. You can search for GitHub Copilot. And again, you got to be careful and choose the right one. It's GitHub Copilot Chat. And you install that, and then you have this window here. You've got this little guy down here, which looks like a Copilot with goggles. And now I have this chat window that I can use. And in this case, I've just opened up a folder with these dump files. And so the whole idea here, whether you're using Claude Code or Copilot chat, is that you are opening up the chat and giving that AI access to your code, or access to your files, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be code. In this case, it's dump files, right? So, but I've opened up VS Code in this folder, and now I'm talking to this AI chat, and it's going to help me accomplish whatever I need to accomplish. And so this is kind of cool to me because I think most developers are opening up a solution like the diagnostic scenario solution that we had before, where it's like a whole coding project. You don't have to do that. Any files that you want the AI agent to have access to, you just open a folder with those files in it, and the AI agent can do it. Another reason we liked and decided to use Copilot Chat is because it has a bunch of other AI models inside of it. And so Microsoft and GitHub have partnered and have contracts with all of the big model providers to get access to their models. So I can use one of the Claude models or the Google Gemini model or the more advanced ChatGPT models, or even Grok, which is the X model. And so I don't know if you follow any of the AI stuff on YouTube or on Twitter or wherever, it changes literally week to week. Like every week, one of these providers is coming out with some new model, and it's the best that's ever been, and it makes everything else look silly. And so it's just continually changing. And so we evaluated and we said, hey, we could go with Claude Code, who's the best right now, or we could go with Copilot Chat, and then we could just use whichever one we want and evaluate them all over time. So that's what we've chosen to do, at least in the short term. And then maybe 6 months from now, one is a clear leader and we stick to one. But for now, this gives us lots of flexibility to do this. So there's a lot of these here. I'll explain this UI just a little bit. So I forget what they call them. Credits or rates or something. So you can see there's a 1x down here, there's a 0.33x, and then these are 0x. And so what that's saying is you can basically use these for free as part of your license. So I have a license through work, and so I get access to this. There's some amount of free, I don't remember exactly what it is, but then you hit some limit and you got to pay for it, but it's very reasonable. Especially getting access to all of these models. And then additionally, because Microsoft has contracted with these other providers, they've handled things like privacy and security as well, right? So anytime you're working with AI, people are mostly concerned about, hey, are you going to use my data to train your model and thereby put potentially my patented information or code into a model that anybody can get access to, or just the security around your data. So Microsoft has already had these conversations with these other providers, and so based on those contracts, my license with Microsoft says, hey, we're going to protect you from a security and privacy standpoint. So it's just another benefit that Copilot Chat provides to you. That's
really important if you start dealing with memory dumps, because you can have
absolutely
start PII and PCI and data in there that's even more sensitive than typical.
Yep, absolutely. So I can put this on auto, and then Copilot Chat will just choose whichever one it thinks would be best, or I can choose one of these. And so I really like the Claude 4.5, which is the latest Claude model. I like Codex a lot, which is more for coding. That comes from ChatGPT and OpenAI. Gemini's good too, but there's a lot of these. And I just kind of go back and forth and see which ones I like the most. And so we can actually use a couple of these. So I'll go with the GPT-5 Mini first. And so I've got these dump files, and so I'm going to say, help me analyze these dump files for my .NET Core 8. I think I'm at 8. ASP.NET API. It is having a performance issue that I need to fix. So in this case, I'm trying to give it some context, some information for what is it that I need help doing and what are these files. So I could just say, hey, look at these files and tell me what you think. But in general, if you can give it a little bit more information, it'll do a better job at whatever you're asking it to do. And so I'll do this one. I chose GPT-5 Mini because generally it's faster and it doesn't spend as much time thinking. We'll see if that actually works. But so now it's going to, it tells me what it's going to do. I'm going to create a structured to-do list for analyzing the dumps and then list the files and check whether the .NET dump analysis tool is available. And so I've given ChatGPT access to my file system, to the terminal on my computer. And so it's running through and evaluating these things. And so in a second, you'll see it's actually running code here. And so in this case, it is downloading something. I don't even know. I already have .NET installed, so I'm not sure what it's installing.
I trust you, ChatGPT.
So let's see what it said.
There's a reason they call it YOLO, I guess.
All right, I'll run a command to output the dumps. Maybe it wasn't installing something, I don't know. But it's giving me a description of what it's doing. It's going through here and pulling stuff. And so it's accessing, it's looking at CLR threads, it's looking at the GC heap. Yep, it's looking at all that. And now it's trying to figure out like what could be going wrong with my app by looking at all of those details. Expand this out. So because there's, a dozen or so different models that I can use, each one is going to do things differently. I don't actually see it hitting the dump files anywhere. But it called the .NET help tool to figure out, hey, how do I use the tool? So I'll show, let's see where to go. Chat settings, maybe. So there's all kinds of settings here, how many requests, are different things available. Do you want to use checkpoints? There's all of that. And then this is cool. So it has all of these built-in capabilities. It can look at diffs for your Git repo. It can fetch information from a web page. It can call out to GitHub. It can open a simple browser. It can run commands. It can run a notebook. It can run tests. There's all these things that it's capable of doing and is how it does the work that it does. And then there's further extensions that I've installed for different languages, whether it's SQL or other things. And then there's MCPs. MCPs are a contract or an API basically that gives an AI tool access to something else. So in this case, I have the Azure MCP. So that's provided by Azure and allows you to call the Azure APIs and get information from Azure. I've got one for Browser Stack, which is a online testing tool. There's one for Microsoft Docs where it can provide all kinds of documentation. And then Playwright is a web testing tool that allows you to do browser automation, which we'll use here in a minute as well. All right, so let's come back here and see. I'm good with that. All right, so now it's looking through. I'm very skeptical of what GPT-5 Mini. Yeah.
I thought I was watching a movie.
So I purposefully chose one that's less capable to start with. So the Mini implies that it's a smaller model and it's not going to it can't do as much thinking and planning and that kind of thing, but it's faster. So depending on what you're doing, if you're doing something that's easier and you just need an AI agent to help you write simple code, then maybe GPT-5 Mini is perfect for that. In this case, it may be over its skis a little bit. Nope. Okay. So, but it came back. Let's see. That's a lot. All right. So actions taken. It's inventoried the dump files. It's verified that the .NET tooling was available. It ran the analyze using the .NET dump command, and it looked at or it output these results or analysis files from those. And so it's done all that. And so now it's read through that, it's analyzed those reports, and it's come up with what it thinks is the problem. So it says, hey, there's many threads waiting. The managed heap is not very large. There was a small number of locks. It suggests there's a performance problem likely caused by thread blocking. Okay, so let's see what evidence. Recommended next steps. Confirm thread pool starvation versus CPU. It's got another command there that it can run. And so it's suggesting, hey, here's some other things that we could do. All right. I would give that a maybe low B, mid C on how it did. Now let's use GPT-5 codec. So saying both. So I'm gonna say clear here, and one thing you always want to do. So it created this file. I got to delete this because if there's extra files in here, the next agent might try to use those files and cheat. Because AI is just as lazy as we are because we taught it how to do its thing. So we're lazy, it's lazy, right? So if it says, oh, here's a folder with all the answers, I'll just use those answers. So you got to make sure that you get rid of any extra files there. So we've done that. And so now I'm going to say clear. And this basically just says, hey, I want to start over with a new chat. I've already changed the model here, and we'll give it a very similar prompt.
Can you just press up?
I don't. Yeah, I can. I wasn't sure if I did clear, but yeah. So help me analyze these dumps, and we'll see how it does.
But just out of curiosity, when you were doing this over the gigabyte dump file, what was the runtime on that?
It wasn't too bad actually.
Okay.
It was probably as fast as this was,
Really?
but I'd get it going and it would churn on it for a while. I'd go get coffee or answer emails and then come back to it, and it had been doing things for me in the interim. And so now this is trying out the analyze command and seeing what options are there. All right, so this is interesting. I've seen this several times. So the AI agent is saying, I ran this command and I'm waiting for it to return. We can see what it ran, and we can see that it's just sitting there waiting. It hasn't returned control back to the user. And so I'm going to stop this because this will spin forever. And I'm going to say, you must instruct the command to quit after running analyze. And then I'll give it. And so half the time it figures out how to do it, and I don't have to tell it how to do it. But this is a perfect example of it's not a silver bullet, right? You still got to be involved and make sure that it's doing the right thing. And so it did. It figured it out. It needed to provide a C exit command. And so now it runs those files, and then it quits, and it returns back to the agent, and then the agent will keep going. So I've come in here, and I'm running in YOLO mode, you only live once, meaning I've given it full access to do whatever the agent wants to do. And so you have to be very careful when you use that. But in this case, for demo purposes, it's a lot easier because otherwise, for every one of these commands, it was like, hey, do you want to run this command? Is that okay? It's like, yes, that's okay. And then 3 seconds later, I want to run this command now. Is that okay? And you can tell it, this type of command is okay. Don't ask me again, that kind of thing. But even sometimes if the arguments change a little bit, it still has to ask you. But so in this case, and in general, I find that the Codex model does a lot better. The Claude Sonnet one does as well, compared to GPT-5 Mini or one of those free models. But so it's going now, and it's doing very similar work. But in times past, when I've run this, it has much more actionable suggestions for how to fix the problem.
This one has feels more methodical.
Yep. Yep. You don't see all the red going by, but it's digging in. It's going through all these things, and so this is the same type of thing that we had going against our gigabyte dump files, where it was going through all these things and trying to find where is the issue. And in my case, we have tens of thousands of calls per minute, and so there's a lot that it can go through. And the more calls it has to look at, the more data it has to try to analyze. In this case, I'm having to run this diagnostic scenario project and go hit a URL and have it go through and do these one at a time. So it doesn't. That's why the files aren't very big, because there's just not a lot of information there.
Were you running this on that laptop, or were you running all of this on the desktop?
Yeah. So all of it's running the commands locally, but all of the token translation and all of the AI thinking is happening in the cloud, right? So I'm not using local models. You can use local models, but it's constrained by how much GPU you have in memory. And so, all of the models that are listed here are all cloud-based models. But Copilot, you can go to Manage Models, and you can come in here, and Ollama is a tool that you can use to run agents locally on your machine. And every week, it seems like there are new advances in how to take some of these really big cloud models and pare them down and run them on much smaller hardware very effectively. So that all of that is capable. So Anthropic is Claude. Azure supposedly is like working on its own model as well now. I haven't seen any news on that, but they did announce that they would be working that in addition to having all of these others. I don't know does anybody know what Open Router is? I've never seen that one.
We took a break on it there.
Yeah. So if it goes for a while, it says, "Hey, do you want to keep going?" Yeah, I want to keep going. So I don't know I'm sure that timeout is configurable, but so it.
What ended up being your issue that you had at work?
So in that case, we were downloading a file from blob storage, and we had written some buffering code to try to stream that. Ironically, we had put that code in place to make it more efficient. So we were seeing garbage collection not collecting for larger files, and so it was effectively a memory leak where it would stack up all these large files. It would never release them, and so we put in code to stream those files to try to improve that memory performance, and that worked fine when we weren't in our primary season. But then once we were, and we had a lot more requests, the volume of requests was a bigger issue than the memory itself. Because what we were seeing is the memory would increase until it used all the memory, and then it would reset the server. And it's like, we don't want a memory leak that does that, so we'll fix that. And in fixing that, we caused a different problem that we only found once we were at high scale.
What did you do? Did you get rid of the buffer?
So we I'm pretty sure we used AI to say, hey, here's the code that we have. What code should we use instead? And there was a built-in method for what we were trying to do that managed that memory better, and ultimately got rid of the issue. I mean, technically, it's still there. I mean, at the end of the day, we're going to be CPU bound and network bound for the action that we're trying to take in that particular API, because it's running on 20 servers like I said, it's one of our most used APIs. So
But you still haven't reached peak season.
we're probably pretty close here in the next month. But yeah, so it was quite the challenge. But you know, the biggest value here is like I had at least 6 different agents for Azure support try to run these memory dumps, and none of them had a suggestion that was impactful to our particular problem. Part of that was just every 8 hours I had to transfer to a new agent, and so
You're talking about a human agent.
right, a human agent, a support agent, and then now we have an AI tool that is just as smart, if not smarter, than some of these people agents that are out there, because they've trained on all of the documentation and all of the learnings of real people. And I'm sure there's support agents at Microsoft that are smarter and will do a better job than AI, but this is probably better than our average support agent, and I can run this anytime I want. I don't have to open up a support ticket at all.
And get escalated. And that's how you have to get to that higher knowledge agent. Human.
Well, then we had escalated multiple times. Even when you escalate, like I probably would have needed somebody on the product team to actually look at this scenario and help us figure something out. And it's just, you can't get access to those people like you can a regular support agent. So it's an incredible capability that we have now to do things that were very, very difficult to do before.
Analyzing my memory dump does seem like it's one of those situations where a person can do it, but there's so much information, and you have 2 of them, and trying to compare them and trying to find what's the difference between them, and I definitely think the right spot that's the problem is it can be daunting.
Oh yeah.
So something like this where it will just doesn't get tired and it'll just keep going on it. It seems.
Yep. I mean, I think the latest versions of Claude, it can run for 24 hours or something crazy, where before it was limited to how long it would go. And then, now you can have agents talking and creating other agents and have a whole array of agents going on things. So it's moving so fast. But it's an incredible capability. So really anything that you don't know how to do, even if it's not hard, use the agent to help you learn how to do it faster and teach you. Because you can say, hey, what would you do in this situation, or how should I fix this? And it can give you some code, and you can see if it works. And then you'd be like, explain to me how you knew to do that. Why did that work? And what would I need to do to learn how to do that? So, in the training that we're going through at work, these AI tools are just as valuable for the most junior developers as they are for the senior developers. The senior developers have all the experience to say, hey, I generally know what to do. Let me spin up 5 agents and treat them like interns and say, you do this, you do that, you do this. And it builds out and does a bunch of work for you. And then for the junior developer, just like, hey, they don't know how to do much, but they can use an AI agent to scan all the code and give an overview of what does this code actually do, or how is it structured, or what's the architecture, or I need to build this new feature, look at the code and look for examples for how I need to do it that's in the same style or standard that the rest of the code is. So I had one do this last night, I guess. And so that's going to take a while.
It's pretty.
Oh yeah. It's like the Matrix, after a while you can read it. But one of the other things, we'll do it. We'll let that keep going. Once I had done this several times at work for the problem that we were having, I got tired of saying, hey, this is a .NET Core app. Hey, you should use the .NET dump command. Don't forget to tell it to quit when you get done, right? I was having to type that for every model that I was putting in or asking. And so once I got results that I liked, I said, hey, that's good. Create an instructions file for yourself so that the next time I need to do this, I don't have to tell you all this stuff again. And I'm not starting from square one every time. So when you watch YouTube videos or you see AI training talking about context, that's what it is. You know, and different agents or AI models use different terminology, and I suspect at some point we'll standardize on something. Agents.md I think is kind of the going standard right now, where you can add an agents.md file, and then most agents will pick that up, whether you're using Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, and that's where you can put instructions or context about what you're doing. Like, am I working for a large enterprise and I am using .NET Framework 5.1 full framework, or am I a startup and I'm using .NET Core and I'm hosting in Azure where the other one's on-prem? Like, you can give it all the context of, here's the constraints that I'm dealing in, or here's the context that I'm dealing with, and then it remembers all of those things, and you don't have to start over every time. So it finished whatever it was doing there, and now it's still going. So again, this is taking longer because it's thinking more, and these bigger models will do more planning and more self evaluation for, hey, you know, does that sound right? And it may tweak it or look further against different things. But once it gets done, we'll ask it, hey, go ahead and create yourself an instructions file, and we'll see how that works.
I kind of wonder on that one, it looked like it went through every single address that it had stored in there. And I kind of wonder on that one if you had some instruction that said, if it knew to write that up to a file instead of write it up to a terminal and then analyze it from the file, it probably would have been like that.
Yeah, so once this finishes, we'll try it again with a clear chat, and we'll say, hey, I want you to do a fast evaluation with this model, and say, hey, I don't want to wait for 15 minutes. I want to run like in 2 or 3 minutes and just do a surface level analysis. Don't do anything that will take too long, and we'll see if it can do that.
Is all of this tied to your machine, your account? If you went to another machine, logged in with your account, how much of this would it remember?
I'm sure there's some tools that might help you to kind of retain that. If you use like, I use Gemini a lot, and so if you use one of the web-based tools of this, you can look at all of my previous chat there, or if I go to Copilot on my local machine, when you're working in this context, which is more of a chat window experience, more of like what ChatGPT was initially. All of the big models have that UI associated with it. It'll keep all of that, and some of them will have projects or things that you can do to say, hey, if I want to come back to this topic later and continue to rev on it and do more research, you can go back and open that up, and then you can have multiple projects that you save over time. But in the context of VS Code and Visual Studio or some IDE, I haven't seen that capability. I'm sure some of them have it. There's all kinds of IDEs. Cursor is another big one. I think it's based off of the same Electron app. Say again?
It's a fork of VS Code.
Okay, I wonder if it's a fork of VS Code or the base of VS Code, which is some Electron app or whatever.
VS Code.
It may be. But there's all kinds of cool capabilities that each one provides. So that's a good question, though.
And also, Copilot, you can use it in Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio or Writer, but it will behave differently in each one.
Oh, really? So I haven't I've installed it, but I haven't actually used it in Writer or VS Code. Via Visual Studio?
So I think like the token limit in VS Code is higher than the token limit in Visual Studio. So like it usually works better in VS Code than anywhere else, just because it's designed for VS Code and you get the higher token limits, and everybody else is just kind of a couple steps behind.
That's interesting. I had not seen that or heard that. I've got a bunch of developers using it right now in Writer and Visual Studio, so I'll be curious to see what their what's cool in this context, and I believe Writer and Visual Studio all have this. They have this Copilot icon at the bottom, and you can see how many premium requests you've used, how many code completions, chat messages. I have unlimited based on my account, and when it resets, and so you can see how many of those that you've used, which is pretty cool. It's still going. We'll stop it in a second if it doesn't finish. What other questions?
So have you used it for any other coding than just these analyzing these dumps so far?
Yeah, absolutely. So in preparation for the AI training that we were going to do at work, I installed Claude Code and several of the tools, and I had like a mock side project thing that I did, and so I started from scratch, and I was like, hey, I'm going to build a SaaS service for college students to find odd jobs to do, and said, hey, I want to use .NET Core, I want to use a SQL database backend, and it created it. It wasn't perfect. I had to help it along the way, and yep. At some point I said, hey, I don't want to use SQL, I want to use Postgres. And I said, convert my data layer from SQL to Postgres, and it just did it. And using Entity Framework, it just swapped everything over.
Updated all the files.
Yep. And then I said, hey, I want to host this in Azure, create my infrastructure as code files to generate all the resources in Azure to do it, to host it. And
Did you have to give it your account and everything?
yes, yeah. So I used the Azure MCP, and I actually had a pipeline in DevOps to do that. And it struggled with some of that, some of the order of operations things. You had to have a container registry before you use the container registry, and so there were some things that I needed, but it was surprising. So like you hear a lot of YouTubers talking about vibe coding, which is where you don't know how to code and you're just getting AI to do it for you. It is absolutely capable of doing that. It probably isn't the best code, but it works. And
You started it.
yeah, absolutely. And then you can rev on it from there. Okay. So it finally came back. So it shows 2 million instances of the customer controller or class sitting in arrays, and it's 225 megabytes per capture. The code that creates the spike is this one right here. So it is even looked at the code to figure out where I need to make a change. Recommended fixes: remove or guard the memory spike endpoint outside of diagnostics. Update the controller to stop materializing millions of customers' classes per request. So if we go, which one did we do? Memory spike? Yeah. No, that's the values. All right, so memory spike. So, yep, it's creating a new customer in a loop with 2 million. Yeah. So it was right. So now we'll say create an instructions file for this type of analysis so that you can perform it again faster next time. And so this should not take as long. It should create an instructions file, and we'll look at that. So AI really likes markdown files. So I suspect it will create a markdown file. So it's preparing instructions. And hopefully it remembers that it has to call quit on the command. Otherwise I'll have to tell it to fix it.
So the first time I created an instructions file, I was like, I opened it up, I was like, well, I don't really know what to put in here. But I started just opened it up and I just named the file, and then the autocomplete was like, here, try this line, and it just kept putting lines in there.
Yep.
Like, oh, okay, well, and so for the most part, like the instructions that it suggested were pretty good. It gave
Yep.
At least gave a good start.
Yeah, I go back and forth. Like you see a lot of people talking about that you have to have those context files. But at the same time, they say don't make it too big, because if it's too big, then it can slow the performance or whatever. And so honestly, I've been really impressed with having no instruction files and it being very capable. And so until I see like some negative behavior that I don't like, I just keep rolling. And now I think in an organization setting where you have coding standards or architectural patterns or designs that you want to share across all team members, then you would absolutely create that file, check it into source control for each of your projects or repos, so that you have that consistency across them. But so here it is, it created it, and so it's got a checklist. It says use .NET dump. It says you got to make sure to call exit. So all of that is there. And so now I can more quickly run this again and go from there. So we'll save that. I'm gonna call clear. Now I'm gonna keep and continue. So now I still have the play. They called it a playbook. It's an MD file, and so oops. All right, help me analyze. And now I'm gonna add. Perform a quick analysis. First, less than 2 minutes.
So how are
I've never actually tried this, so I don't know what's
So
going
how
on.
are you guiding your team to start implementing this in their flow?
So right now we're in kind of an exploratory phase where it's like, hey, I got like 50 plus people and everybody's just trying it to see what works. And so, part of that is just seeing, with everybody trying it different ways and it's not too prescriptive, then hopefully we find things that are more creative or more valuable that any one person, if I said, hey, everybody has to use this context file or everybody has to use AI in this way, it's so constrained that we're probably missing out on some of the value there. And so it did it. So granted, it had the instructions file that it could use, and so it didn't have to relearn those things, but it absolutely provided a response much faster this time than it did last time. It did go through that full memory check or whatever it was. So let's see. Shows 23 managed threads. 48 heap snapshot, so at least found that there's a big customer array. Can you make a suggestion for fixing my performance issue in less than 2 minutes? Because basically what it said is, hey, we should run these other commands, which I'm sure would take longer. There you go. So, replace the static customer cache with an eviction kibble. Yeah, so it sees that there was a big customer count.
It's still finding the same
Yeah.
problem.
So you can give it as much time or as little time as you have available based on, do I need to go make coffee and I'll let it go for 15 minutes, or we'll do something else. So Any questions on that? I've got one more thing that I think is pretty cool. So, if I go to MCP server, so like I said before, I think it was here. Yeah, I've got a couple of MCP servers. There are hundreds, I'm sure, of MCP servers now that you can use to extend the capabilities of your agent. And it gives that agent capabilities beyond itself, beyond what it would have otherwise. And typically it's some other organization, vendor, whatever, giving access to its capabilities and knowledge, right? So I forget what the name. There's one that has all the documentation for all the different versions of platforms. Do you remember what it's called? I forget what it's called. There's one for a thinking process of how AI agent should come up with an idea and then evaluate its own idea and rev on it, and there's all kinds of different ones. This Playwright one is pretty cool. So originally it was just, hey, if you want to run automated tests, you can use this Playwright tool developed by Microsoft, also open source, for running and automating a browser so that you can run test automation in the browser. What's cool is it can also take screenshots of the browser. So all these people using these AI agents said, I don't need the test automation piece, but I need screenshots of the browser so that the agent knows what's happening. So it was basically the eyes of the agent at that point. And so by using Playwright, even if you weren't doing test automation, you could say, hey, make a bunch of code changes and then load the website and look for any errors on the page. And it would automate the browser and show that. So we will try to do something similar here.
That must be built into ChatGPT, because the other day I was in the Apple development website and I was having trouble getting it to respond properly, and it was reading the screen and telling me what entries I had filled in.
Yeah, so there's a big push right now for more automation in the browser. That was kind of taboo early on because everybody was scared, like it was going to use your credit card number and book a flight or something. But now, like I think it was OpenAI today released a browser, Atlas, I think is what it's called. And so that's kind of the next big thing now. So they're definitely beefing up those capabilities. So in this case, though, I want to look and make sure I've got the Playwright MCP. And you can turn these off. There's a warning here that says I've got a bunch of tools enabled. The more you have, the slower it could potentially get, because it's saying, hey, how can I use the Jupyter extension in this project? And you really can't. It's not. So I can turn off Python and Azure and SQL Server and Browser Stack because I don't need those. And so now the warning goes away. But I have the MCP. So I can say take a memory dump of my app, or for my app, hit the URL, hit one of my methods 3 times. I don't say 2 times. 2 times, and then take a second memory dump. Analyze the dumps quickly, less than 2 minutes, and provide any suggestions. So now, instead of me having to take the memory dumps, I'm saying, hey, I don't even know. So this is Codex. I'm asking Codex to do the work for me. So what should happen is it should open up a secondary browser and hit the URL. I did this last night, and it was mostly able to do it. I did have to accept a development certificate, but so it's reading the diagnostic scenarios controller to see what's there. It's probably going to pick a method, and then it should open up the browser using, so I forgot to tell it. So we'll say using the MCP, the Playwright MCP, because it may have other means to, it may use curl to try to hit the URL. In this case, I think it's cool that it's controlling the browser. So I wanted to show it running. So, okay, so it's planning out how to use Playwright. It's running the project. It's already running, so it's probably gonna barf on that. We'll kill it. Then it can run it. Yeah, so I think because I had it running, I think it confused it. So I mentioned Browser Stack before. We use that for mobile app test automation. So they've got data centers where they have physical phone devices plugged up, and you can use time on those phones to run test automation using Appium, which is an automation framework. And so instead of me having to have 20 or 100 iPhones, I can just say, hey, here's my test, go run it on your 100 iPhones. And so they have an MCP, and so you can say, hey, here's my test, go run it for me, and go from there. So now the agent has started the app. It's running. It ran the process command to see the process name. Okay, so this is funny. So it ran the app, but then it shut it down so that it could have the terminal back to do this. So so exploring how to run without blocking the terminal. Let's see what it does.
Can it open up the second terminal?
I don't think so. Not with just the normal setup. I'm sure it can create background agents if you give it that capability. There it goes. Okay.
Do they
So,
have to containerize this?
yeah, you could absolutely use containers. So in that little side project that I was using to evaluate AI agents, I was using Docker to like host a local instance of SQL Server, and it would manage all of the Docker containers and everything. So it's fully capable of doing all of that as well. So
I was saying, because then you can tell it to run detached code.
Yep. Well, in this case, it just said, "Oh, I'm just going to open up my own terminal outside of VS Code," and so that's what you can see here. Is it created this terminal and started the web server, and now it's running the dump commands over here, and so now it wrote a dump file from there, and now it's navigating to the URL with the MCP. So a browser window should open here in a second, and I might need to. Yeah, so in this memory leak, I think that's milliseconds, so it's only running a memory leak for 1 second. And then it's pulling another dump file, and now it's doing the analysis. So the possibilities, honestly, are kind of endless, and it, like I said, it's changing day to day, week to week, as far as what capabilities are out there and how you might use these tools. So you really gotta stay up on what's going on and how you might use these things. But you've got to work with your employer and make sure that, you know, they're okay with you using these tools, because there's a lot to consider from a legal aspect and a security and privacy aspect. But I am fully on board with this is going to be the future of development. And, you know, we had lots of developers that were scared that, you know, this is going to take my job or whatever. It's like, you know, we would love to get an extra 50% of productivity out of people, because then we could do a whole lot more, right? I have yet to, you know, at least I can't speak for everybody, but I think most companies would say, hey, if I can do more faster, let's do that. Doesn't mean you have to lay off people. It may mean you don't hire as many coming in, but you definitely want to be the developer that knows how to use these tools and is proficient in them, so that you can use it and not be in the dark on it. So
do you know how much of this will be included in Ignite? Have you been told?
no, but you know, usually they'll have rough agendas. There you go, session catalog.
I just didn't know if you've been told.
I guarantee AI is
It's gotta be
probably,
the top of the whole thing.
yes,
Oh, yeah.
frontier firms,
Y'all, AI.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
So we'll-
You'd be hard pressed not to find.
AI.
Talk to
AI.
Even passing.
So I mean, they've got these tags, and all of these have AI tags on. I mean, probably the .NET Conf one too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Biggest virtual event. I don't see an agenda on this one. Add to calendar. But I mean, it's everywhere. You can't get away from it right now. So I would expect any of these big conferences are going to be talking about these things. So good question. Anything else? Any other questions? How many people have actually used a agent in their development? About half, well, a third maybe. I would definitely suggest it. If you can get I would not suggest it if you haven't gotten clearance. But if you're working for somebody, you should be the one to come in and say, hey, this thing's incredible. If we don't do this, our competitors will, and they'll eat our lunch. You know, that's how I saw a lot of success in my career, was being the one to kind of push the envelope a little bit. So I would encourage you to take it to your employer and say, hey, this is going to be the next big thing. We need to get in front of it and start using it. And if we need to go through legal, right, let's go through legal and make sure it's all clear. But got to be using these tools. They're just too powerful and too capable to ignore them. So cool.
Trust but verify though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We could have a whole nother talk, and I think Chris went into some of this, but the AI will lie to you, and it will hallucinate, and you absolutely have to double check it. The way that we're talking about it with our team is you're still accountable for all the code that goes into the repos and the PRs, right? That's great that you're using an AI tool, but you're the one responsible for the code that it creates. So it's no different than, you know, assigning an intern or junior developer to another developer in pair programming. We do that so that we have safety in the more senior people evaluating and making sure that we're adhering standards and quality and all of those things. So
It is super confident that it knows exactly what it's doing.
yeah, that's why I love Copilot Chat so much, is because I'll pit the models against each other. And you know, some of the ways you can do that is pretty interesting, and the models have personalities. Some of them are much more critical and skeptical, and some are very praising and you're the smartest person ever. And so
What about if you tried that you felt was critical, or
say again?
you said that you think there's like some models that are a little bit more critical. Like which ones were you thinking of there?
Honestly, I've seen it. I get them all mixed up though, because I'm going back and forth so much. I don't know which one it was. But it will answer differently if you say, I wrote this code, what do you think about it? Versus one of my developers or another developer wrote this code. I have absolutely seen it be more critical of other developer could have better
I don't know what they're
code,
doing.
but if it's my code, it wants to be really nice to me, which is not what you want. You know, you want it to be honest.
I feel pretty good, like, I think, if I have it write something, and then after it writes it, say, do you see something wrong with this?
Yeah.
And have it analyze it, its own code. I haven't really tried like switching models, but that would probably be.
Yeah. Some other just quick tips. Sometimes you get in these doom loops where it is not listening to what you tell it to do, and it just keeps giving the wrong answer over and over again. Start over. Just clear it, and give it different instructions or change models or something like that. Because I've literally spent days trying to get us I must be doing something wrong, and I'm not instructing it the right way. And at the end of the day, it was just, it had all this context in its memory for everything that we've talked about, and it can't get out of its own way, right? And the answer was just to clear the session, create a new chat, and start over. And you can, because it's not my time, it's the agent's time, so
It's not me, it's you.
yeah, exactly. So, cool.
Thank you.
Was that a good talk? Helpful? Good. All right. Well, I'm expecting to do a November meetup. Sometimes we skip it based on Thanksgiving and everything, but I think Thanksgiving's a little bit later, so we'll do that. I don't currently have a speaker, so if anybody wants to give a presentation, let me know. And we'll see everybody third week of November. Thank you.
Thank you. Still some food out there for something to eat out.